My Daughter, My Wife. Episode 2. Andy sat beside Madonna, his head hanging low, the weight of his actions weighing heavily upon him. He shut his eyes and opened them again, blinking rapidly and hoping that he'll realize everything had been all but a nightmare. The events of the previous night replayed in his mind like a horror movie. He couldn't escape, and his body began to tremble involuntarily. He recalled the importance of the name he has worked for, the much he had achieved as a man, and how much was at stake for him, as he looked at Madonna, wishing she was being naughty with what she had said. But with Madonna sitting beside him, her eyes fixed on him with a cold determination that sent shivers down his spine, it didn't look like he was dreaming. "Madonna, I've told you how sorry I am for what happened. Everything happened while I was drunk and had lost control of my senses. Please forgive me and let us think of a way forward. Your mum's betrayal pushed me into drinking, something I have never indulged in, and that resulted in the mess we have now found ourselves. But then, I take responsibility for my wrongs, and I'm apologizing from the sincerity of my heart. Please forgive me and let us think of a way forward," Andy said, but Madonna remained silent, looking at his lips as though she wasn't hearing him. "Madonna," he called, tapping her on her shoulder, and she jumped in a startle. Then she broke the silence, her voice cutting through the heavy air like a knife. "You don't need to apologize, Daddy. What's done is already done, and like you said, we must move forward. The only problem now is that you're still seeking for the way forward when I have told you the truth. You got drunk and then descended on me, taking away my innocence. And now, since I can't get myself a boyfriend without looking like I have been sleeping around before I met him, you will have to be that boyfriend. After all, you do not want this thing you have done to be known by anyone else, so we can keep it a secret." "Yes, Daddy, I assure you that it can remain a secret, but the only way to keep this our little secret is for you to continue what you started. Make me your secret lover," she told him with a boldness he never expected from someone her age. Andy looked at her in disbelief, his voice shaky as he asked, "Have you lost your mind, Madonna? What we did was wrong, it's unforgivable. I was drunk and disoriented, otherwise, I'd never imagined laying hands on my daughter. How can you conceive such a devilish thought and still find the guts to mention it? How can you suggest that I as much as look at you a second time, how much more getting in bed with you again?" he asked fiercely. Madonna's gaze didn't waver, neither did her resolve to get what she wanted. "But we're not blood-related, Daddy. And besides, we're both singles now since my mother chose to leave us for her boyfriend. What harm could it do if we find comfort in each other? Or do you think you're the only one that feels abandoned and betrayed by Mum's disappearance? She abandoned me and my sisters. She left her duties as a mother to me, and most painfully, left the duties she owes Emma and Lily to me as well. What then is the abomination in taking over her husband? I don't have a boyfriend, neither do you have a wife. You have already taken the innocence that would have given me a man of my own, so you can't just push me aside, just because you've got what you have always wanted," she said, sounding so vindictive and malicious. Andy tried to move away, to distance himself from the madness of the situation, but Madonna's threat hung in the air like a dark cloud. She warned him that she would start telling people about what had happened if he didn't comply. The fear of the scandal that would inevitably ruin his reputation forced Andy back to the bed, his heart heavy with shame. Their secret affair began, a twisted dance of guilt and desire that neither could escape. Andy and Madonna learned to navigate and weave through the day's activities in a way that created time for their secret and forbidden romance. At night, Madonna would quickly put her sisters to sleep and sneak into Andy's room to meet the waiting and ever-prepared Andy. Months passed, and Madonna dropped another bombshell on him, her words like a dagger to his heart. She was pregnant. Andy's world shattered around him as he struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the situation. Madonna, with a sly smile playing on her lips, laid out her new condition. "You will take care of me and this child, your first biological child. And like you already know, this means you must marry me." Andy felt trapped, entangled in a web of his own making. "This is it, Andy, you're ruined now. You have completely destroyed yourself," he thought as he sat looking at Madonna speechlessly. Andy stared at Madonna in disbelief for quite a while, as he pictured the effect of the bombshell. She was pregnant and she wanted him to marry her. He felt a surge of anger and panic rising within him as he thought about how everything piled up to that stage. "Are you out of your mind, Madonna?" he exclaimed, his voice quivering with frustration. "You blackmailed me into this mess from the beginning, and now you want me to publicly declare you as my wife? How do you expect me to do that?" Madonna's eyes hardened as she stared back at him, unwavering in her resolve. "You don't have to scream at me, Daddy. You have been bouncing on me as often as you could get it up, all these while, and you didn't complain about being blackmailed into it. You practically made me move to your bedroom, passing every night with you, giving you endless pleasures at night and passionate love by the day. And now that I'm pregnant, you suddenly recall that I forced you into the affair. Are you serious now? A girl as young as I am forced an adult male into an affair that resulted in pregnancy? Let's not talk about the truth about who truly forced who, because I'm sure you can recall perfectly how you hid under the pretense of drunkenness and forced yourself on me. And now that I am pregnant, after doing everything a wife does for a man, you think it's impossible to give me the title? I won't hesitate to walk away with this pregnancy if you refuse to marry me, Daddy, but you will have no claim over the child in this lifetime. And as you already know, whoever ends up paying my bride price will be the father of this child," she retorted, her tone laced with a sinister edge. The weight of her words settled heavily upon Andy as he realized the gravity of the situation he found himself in. He knew how embarrassingly terrible it is for anyone to know that he has a thing to do with Madonna's pregnancy, but he thought about the fact that it was going to be his first time of being a father for real. Then memories of the first encounter with Madonna flooded back to him, the manipulation and coercion that had led them down this dark path. He couldn't bear the thought of his own flesh and blood being raised by another man, just as he had taken on the role of father to Madonna when he married her mother and paid her bride price. What if she gives birth to a girl and the man she marries ends up tossing that child of mine in bed, like I've been doing Madonna, he thought with a frown. But again, he couldn't see how he was going to marry Madonna, a girl friends and family knew as his daughter. The implications of Madonna's pregnancy and the ultimatum she had presented him with left Andy reeling, his mind clouded with worries and uncertainty. As Andy prepared to leave for work, the weight of Madonna's ultimatum loomed over him like a dark cloud. His heart heavy with the burden of his choices and the consequences that loomed on the horizon, he wandered through his morning in a haze of worry and indecision, unsure of how to navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. The specter of a forced marriage and the impending arrival of a child he could never truly claim weighed heavily on Andy's mind, casting a shadow over his every thought and action. Benga and Chikuti, Andy's friends and colleagues, walked into his office to find him sitting dejectedly, his thoughts consumed by the shameful secret he was harboring. Concerned, they approached Andy and asked him what was troubling him. "I'm good, just a minor issue, but it's okay," Andy bluffed, and Benga shrugged before sitting down, but Chikuti wasn't convinced. "You know, Andy, you can lie to everyone else, but me. How can whatever it is be a minor issue, yet the workaholic Andy is sitting idly, while that pile of work stares him in the face?" Chikuti asked, pushing harder and asking that Andy told him what the problem was. After a moment of reluctance, Andy confessed to them the unthinkable truth, how he had deflowered Madonna, his stepdaughter, on the day his wife eloped with her boyfriend, in a drunken haze, and had been blackmailed into a secret affair that had now resulted in her pregnancy. "Wait, Andy, tell me this is a joke. You slept with your daughter under the pretense of drunkenness? And what did you say now? You were blackmailed into an affair with your daughter? Are you kidding me?" Chikuti asked in askance. "Hey, he's in a mess all right, but come on, Chikuti, you're making it sound like he committed a taboo," Benga said. "It's a taboo, all right. What else do you call it when a man goes to bed with his own daughter?" Chikuti asked angrily. "Bring your voice down, Chikuti, and stop calling Madonna his daughter. She's his stepdaughter and not his biological daughter. There's a huge difference between the two. But then, even though she's an adult now, I'm wondering how Andy of all people didn't think twice before getting deeply involved with her. Fine, I don't give a rat ass about that shit of her being your daughter traditionally, but you went too far getting her pregnant," Benga said. Andy had his head bowed as he listened to his friends argue about whether or not it was an abomination to get in bed with Madonna. The shock and disbelief on Benga and Chikuti's faces was palpable as Andy went ahead to tell them of Madonna's ultimatum for marriage and the threat of her walking away with the unborn child, even going as far as reminding him of the reality of handing the child over to anyone who paid her bride price. Benga, ever the pragmatist, suggested that Andy should go ahead and marry Madonna, rationalizing that they weren't blood-related and that it might be the only way to salvage the situation and give him a chance to father a child after the paternity scam his ex-wife gave him. Chikuti, on the other hand, vehemently opposed the idea, labeling it as an abomination that should not be further compounded by the unspeakable act of marrying his stepdaughter. He argued that Andy was still young and could father children later on, urging him to let Madonna go and move on from the sordid affair. And so, going with Chakuti's caution, Andy, still feeling the weight of Madonna's manipulation and the looming consequences of his actions, decided to take a drastic step. He devised a plan to stay out late and leave the house early in the hopes of avoiding Madonna altogether, until she left on her own volition. But fate had a different plan, as that very night, when Andy sneaked back into his bed, he failed to notice Madonna silently observing him. He had no way of knowing that even though the house was completely dark, with all the lights put out, Madonna had seen him come in, and had sneaked into the room, waiting for him to come in. As soon as he got off his clothes and lay on the bed with just his briefs, he began to feel her touches, something that made him wonder if he was dreaming, but it was no dream. Her touch was seductive, and he found himself unable to resist her advances, realizing in that moment that he couldn't bear the thought of living without her in his bed. Andy's descent into the abyss of desire and desperation seemed inevitable as he found himself trapped in a web of deceit and forbidden passion orchestrated by Madonna's cunning manipulation. That night, after their passionate entangle, Andy proposed marriage to Madonna, asking her to be his wife with a ring she produced from the side of the bed. How did she know that after this night's encounter, I won't be able to stay without her? How did she know that I'll surely put a ring to this, damning whatever anyone has to say? He thought with a smile as she lay in his arms that night. He already made up his mind to let Chakuti know his decision to marry Madonna and to inform him that he was old enough to take personal decisions. "What an amazing decision this is, Andy. I really need to give you a standing ovation," Chakuti told him, his sarcasm biting very hard. "I have told you what you need to know, Chakuti. That girl drives me crazy with the crazy things she does to me in the bedroom. Plus, I don't want my first biological child growing outside my home, so I'm marrying her and that is it," he told his friend as they sat in his office. "I'm sorry, Andy, but it's clear you haven't thought of something. Surely, you won't be able to marry Madonna, no matter the degree of your madness," Chakuti said with a triumphant smile. "And why is that?" Andy asked hurriedly, only to freeze on the spot after Chakuti replied. "How are planning to marry her, Andy?" "Because marrying her officially is the only guarantee of your ownership of the child, like you're desperately seeking. So how are you marrying her? And before you answer me, remember that by virtue of the traditional marriage you had with Stella, Madonna is your daughter. So who are you paying the bride price to?" "You make me laugh, Andy. You're actually not as smart as your efficiency in your job makes you appear," Chakuti told him with a smirk, rendering Andy completely speechless and clueless. He arrived home still clueless and troubled, and Madonna was quick to notice his troubled countenance. "What is it, Daddy? Trouble at work?" she asked with a caring smile as she leaned on him, making sure all the goodies she had were making an impression. Andy told her how Chakuti had called his attention to the fact that he is still her father traditionally, so there was nobody to pay a bride price that will make her his wife, and Madonna crumbled dejectedly on a sofa close to her, her face contorted in a frown that suggested deep concentration, seeming to be thinking really hard. Then she smiled all of a sudden, looking like a scientist that had just made a huge discovery. "I have a solution, Daddy. We can actually get our marriage registered in the registry. Traditional marriage is not the only type of marriage, after all," she said, and Andy didn't know when he hugged her with a shout of joy. The next day, Andy sat in his office, going through some paperwork with his friend Chakuti when his phone rang. Seeing that it was Madonna, he excused himself and answered the call. "Hey, my Donna, how are you? Missing Daddy already?" he asked with a smile. "I'm taking a cold shower, Daddy, and I've been wishing you were here to help me scrub my back," she said before she requested for a video call. His heart skipped a beat when he saw Madonna fully unclad in a jacuzzi, her playful smile turning mischievous. Andy turned around uncomfortably, checking to be sure Chakuti wasn't peeking into his phone. She asked him to help her check if she was properly washed, causing Andy to scold her for filming herself in such a state, worried that Chakuti might catch a glimpse. "What are you doing, Madonna? What if my friend had peeked into my phone and saw everything? You should have at least warned me to get me prepared for what you're up to," he told her with a stern tone. Madonna, however, grew irritated at his scolding and threatened to call someone else if he wasn't willing to assist. "Why do you always have the time to query me and never get the time to make me feel special? You know what? I think I better call someone else, at least, someone who'd realize that my calls means that I'm missing him," she said, clicking her tongue. Panic set in as Andy frantically assured her he was on his way home. Chakuti, sensing the tension, shot Andy a disapproving look, asking why he was in such a rush to jeopardize his career over the whims of a woman. You know, Andy, I never really imagined you were this crazy. For God's sake, Andy, how can a little girl get you running from the pressing tasks you have here at work like this? Chakotay asked. You don't understand, Chakotay. That girl you call little is going to be my wife soon, and she's pregnant with my child. I need to pay her attention and make her feel loved because she's going to give me what no other woman has been able to give me, Andy replied. Forgive me if I don't recall correctly, but didn't her mother abandon your marriage because you were too busy to pay her attention? Pray tell, Andy, when did you suddenly become too free at work to find the time to give a spoilt brat all the attention she now wants? Chakotay asked, but Andy rolled his eyes and packed up his suitcase to go. You are joking with everything you have built all these years, Andy. This is madness, and you know it, Chakotay warned. Ignoring the warning, Andy rushed out of the office, desperate to fulfill Madonna's demands. When he arrived home, he spent hours pleasing her in bed, trying to make up for their earlier argument. Much later, Andy finally emerged from the bedroom, only to be startled by a loud knock on the entrance door. Both Andy and Madonna exchanged puzzled looks, wondering who could be at the door at that time of the day. Madonna's siblings were still in school, and Andy wasn't expecting anyone, so he imagined it could be someone hitting a wrong doorbell. I'll get the door and see who could be there, Andy said, but Madonna decided to tag along. He hesitantly approached the door, with Madonna standing right beside him, wearing nothing but a crop top over her chest and a scarf on her waist. As he cautiously opened the door, a blood-curdling scream escaped his mouth when he saw the figure standing in front of him. Do you want to know who Andy saw at the door? Can you already imagine what Andy is going to say to whoever is at the door? What if the person at the door is... No, I better not say it. Will this person's arrival affect Andy's plans to marry Madonna and have his child born in his home? Find out in the next episode. Subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to turn on notification, so you get notified when I post the next episode of this very interesting story.